Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to get started in 1 minute. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those on the West Coast. Welcome to this afternoon's Advanced Driver Assistance Systems for Transit Buses Demonstration and Automated Transit Bus Maintenance and Yard Operations Demonstration Competitive Funding Opportunity webinar being hosted by FTA's Office of Research, Demonstration, and Innovation. My name is Justin John, and I'm a Transportation Program Specialist in FTA's Office of Research, Demonstration, and Innovation. Before we get started on the content, I want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. First, for those that are be interested in providing questions during this afternoon's webinar, please use the Q&A function to submit your questions. You may find the Q&A function on the Zoom toolbar on the bottom of your screen. Questions will be addressed after the final presentation as time permits. Additionally, you may submit questions to transitautomation@dot.gov after the webinar if we do not get to your question in time. Presentation materials and FAQs will be posted on FTA's website at the following hyperlink below. Following the webinar, again, we will have a recording. This webinar is being recorded, and we also will be submitting FAQs that will be helpful to your application process while this Nofo is open. And as noted before, this webinar is being recorded. So for this afternoon's agenda, we're going to first provide an introduction and context for this competitive funding opportunity. We're going to provide a little bit of background on FTA's Transit Bus Automation Research Program. Then we'll discuss the specific funding opportunity itself, both the Advanced Driver Assistance Systems and the Automated Yard Operations. We'll discuss how to apply for this funding opportunity, and then we'll address questions. We have several speakers on this afternoon's webinar. Again, my name is Justin John. I'm accompanied by my colleague, Steve Mortensen from FTA's Office of Research, Demonstration, and Innovation. My colleague, Danielle Diggs, also from FTA's Office of Research, Demonstration, and Innovation. And Jonita Glover from FTA's Office of Grants Management and Guidance. That we'll get into the context of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Good afternoon, all. And to provide a little background, we want to first mention the FTA Strategic Transit Automation Research Plan, what we call the STAR Plan, was released in January 2018 and provides a 5-year research roadmap. Now, there's 3 tracks for what we call work areas of the STAR Plan, which include enabling research to identify and address key barriers such as policy and market issues, integrated demonstrations, which are our prototypes, and where we create a test bed for study. And the last work area is strategic partnerships that are critical to accelerating innovation and deployment. Now, in addition, there are also cross-cutting activities, knowledge transfer, stakeholder engagement, and technical assistance. The overall goal is to provide transit agencies with the information such as resources, guidance, and tools they need to make informed decisions.
I'm going to talk about the technology packages that are in the STAR Plan. The STAR Plan outlines 5 technology packages that contain a total of 14 use cases. Each technology package has at least 1 use case, as shown in this diagram. The technology packages transfer roughly into 5 demonstrations outlined in the STAR Plan. This competitive funding opportunity is limited to 2 of the technology packages, those with the red perimeter. Transit bus advanced driver assistance systems, maintenance, yard, and parking operations. Information on the use cases is provided in the STAR plan, specifically in Appendix D.
So next we'll get into the notice of funding opportunity. The FTA recently issued a competitive notice of funding opportunity for transit bus automation demonstration projects. The Nofo for transit bus automation demonstration projects under the Public Transportation Innovation Program 49 USC 5312 was published September 22nd, 2022. Applications are due by November 21st of 2022 this year. So with this funding opportunity, there is a $6.5 million that's available for demonstration projects in 2 areas. The first one is $5 million for ADAS for transit buses, and the second one is for $1.5 million for an initial phase of automated transit bus maintenance and yard operations. Please note, there is no minimum or maximum project size with respect to the dollar amount, but obviously it cannot exceed $5 million for the ADAS project and $1.5 million for a bus yard project. So the FTA aims to better understand the needs and feasibility of automation technology and supports the development of these technologies to increase transit safety and efficiency. The transit bus automation demonstration goals are: 1, to demonstrate automation technologies in real-world settings to understand feasibility and impacts. 2, we want to create a test bed of study, which will include technical issues, user acceptance, operational and maintenance costs, workforce training and transition, as well as institutional issues. We also want to further assess needs for standards development, spur technology development. We want to look at how we grow confidence for transit agencies, which will provide practical information to help transit agencies make informed decisions. And lastly, we have a goal to increase safety and efficiency. Now let's talk a little about the ADAS for transit bus demonstration. As I mentioned before, it's $5 million funding available. They should demonstrate market-ready or near market-ready ADAS technologies for 1 or more use cases. These use cases include smooth acceleration and deceleration, automatic emergency braking and pedestrian collision avoidance, curb avoidance, precision docking, narrow lane shoulder operations, platooning. And once again, these are examples of potential use cases and are not an exhaustive list, so there may be others. Demonstrations should be conducted with vehicles as well as technologies that are currently on the market and can be adapted or retrofitted. It's also important, I want to note here, that the ADAS technology must include actuation. It is not a system that simply provides warnings to the bus operator to take action, such as to avoid a collision. Continuing with the ADAS, we're also looking at assessing technology and readiness and effectiveness, address technical issues. We want to identify benefits and costs and measure impacts. Project eligible activities include requirements, architecture and design development, equipment installation and integration, pre-demonstration testing, workforce engagement, training, and skills development. Projects will consist of a 12-month operational demonstration and revenue service. Next, the automated transit bus maintenance, yard, and operation demonstration. As I noted earlier, it's $1.5 million for the initial phase. Additional funding may be available for a second phase. Demonstration 1 or more use cases may include precision movement for fueling, recharging, maintenance, disinfection, and or bus wash, automated parking and recall. And once again, these are examples of potential use cases and are not an exhaustive list, so there may be others. It must be conducted with vehicles broadly representative of a parent agency's fleet in terms of size and passenger capacity. So this could include a cutaway, 40-foot bus, articulated bus, and a motor coach. The demonstration should also assess technology readiness and effectiveness, address technical issues, identify benefits and costs, and measure impacts. The project eligible activities for the maintenance yard and operation activities include requirements, architecture, design development, equipment installation and integration, testing, workforce engagement, training, and skills development. Phase 1. So phase 1 will result in one or more concepts of operations and limited proof of concept demonstration. It must be conducted within 12 months of the project award. So this means phase 1 must be completed within 12 months of the project award. Phase 2, pending funding, it's envisioned to result in a longer term, 12 to 24 months, operational demonstration on a transit property located in an active yard and with additional functionality. So for example, expanding the number of equipped vehicles, locations within the yard, or expanded automation of functions. So I'm going to stop here and pass it on to my colleague, Steve Mortensen, who will share some additional and more important information regarding the Nofo.
Thank you, Danielle. Yes, we'd like to now talk about eligible applicants and project teams. The following groups are eligible to apply for funding for this competitive funding opportunity. It includes public transit agencies, state and local government entities, metropolitan planning organizations, federally recognized Indian tribes, institutions of higher education, particularly those with minority serving institution status. Now turning to project partners. Teaming partners may include, but are not limited to, the following groups: bus manufacturers, technology system suppliers, developers, and integrators, operators of transportation services such as employee shuttle services, airport connector services, university transportation systems, or parking and tolling authorities. Also, state and local government entities, labor unions and other workforce representatives, and other organizations, including but not limited to consultants, research consortia, and not-for-profit industry organizations. Again, this is a non-exhaustive list. For those successful applicants that will be selected for award, we'd like to talk a little bit about project structure, FTA expectations and requirements. FTA will provide a maximum of 80% of the project total funds. That means that there will be a requirement for a minimum 20% local cost share. That is 20% of the total project cost, not 20% of the federal amount. FTA will award cooperative agreements to the lead applicant, the recipient. In a cooperative agreement, FTA has substantial involvement in the administration of the project. FTA's roles include the right to participate in decisions, to redirect and reprioritize project activities, goals, and deliverables. Projects are structured on cost reimbursable basis. FTA will reimburse recipients for costs incurred. Recipients will submit invoices via Delphi and not be allowed to draw down funds via FTA's ecosystem. Selected projects will be required to work with an independent evaluator. The project team will work with an independent evaluator, or IE for short, to develop an evaluation plan and is expected to provide data to the IE for analysis. The IE will produce an evaluation report at the end of the project, which will be available to the public. The project team will have an opportunity to review the draft evaluation report prior to finalization and publication. Project teams are not expected to conduct a self-evaluation. A self-evaluation is not an eligible project expense for this effort. Project teams are expected to provide knowledge transfer throughout the project, such as giving presentations at industry webinar or industry conferences, participating in webinars, and participating in FTA's Transit Bus Automation Community of Practice. Project teams will be required to produce a report, a project report, for publication at the end of the project, documenting the project approach, results, lessons learned, conclusions, and potential next steps, and include training materials produced by the project. This report is different than the evaluation report produced by the independent evaluator. And recipients may refer to FTA's Research Circular 6100.1E to help guide project implementation. I'd like to make some notes with respect to project requirements. Transit bus automation demonstration projects must meet certain requirements. They must comply with safety requirements. Specifically, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Projects must also comply with Made in America, including Buy America and Build America. They must also comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. Other requirements include communicating with the FTA project manager prior to external communications engagement, such as the knowledge transfer that I just talked about. So that would include things, again, as conference presentations, webinars, and news or magazine articles. And there's a requirement for data access and sharing. Recipients and project teams must work conducted under this award must follow the department data policies outlined in DOT's public access plan at ntl.bts.gov/public-access/how-comply. Recipients are required to include these obligations in any subawards or other related funding requirements. Confidential business information and personally identifiable information may not be shared. Please see the Nofo for a full discussion of requirements, as I just went over some of the requirements. Now turning to the criteria that will be used for selecting the applications, the application evaluation criteria. Applicants will be evaluated against the following criteria: project impact and outcomes. FTA seeks applications that demonstrate a clear understanding and presentation of the technology to be demonstrated, its maturity today, expected maturity at the conclusion of the project, and potential impacts on the workforce as a result of the technology implementation. FTA seeks projects that increase the transit community's knowledge about the feasibility, effectiveness, benefits, and costs of driving automation technologies for transit buses. Next, project approach. Applicants should describe the workflow, including tasks and associated milestones and deliverables, the work breakdown structure, if you will. How applicants plan to engage the workforce, develop and administer needed training, and assess the effectiveness of that training. Applicants should provide knowledge transfer approach and delineate project roles and responsibilities, present a project budget. Next, evaluation criterion, organizational capacity and staff experience. Applicants should discuss successful completion of similar or relevant projects and note staff who will be involved in the project and their qualifications. And finally, technical, legal, and financial capacity. Applicants should demonstrate the financial and organizational capacity and managerial experience to successfully oversee and implement the project. The technical, legal, and financial capacity should be provided for both the applicant and any named project partners. Please note that this is a general description of the criteria, so please see the Nofo for the full discussion and details of the evaluation criteria. Next, moving on to the review and selection process. A technical evaluation committee and the FTA administrator will evaluate and select funding applicants based on the evaluation criteria that I just mentioned, as well as other relevant factors. A technical evaluation review teams made up of federal staff will evaluate proposals based on the evaluation criteria identified in the Nofo and I just spoke about, and provide technical recommendations to leadership. FTA may also consider the extent to which applications provide air quality benefits, benefit environmental justice populations, and promote racial equity and the removal of barriers to opportunity. FTA may also consider geographic diversity, diversity in recipient type or size, and cap the amount of a single applicant may receive. The FTA administrator will determine the final selection based on review of the technical evaluation committee and consideration of other factors, as I have just discussed. Now moving on to how to apply for these, the funding opportunities. Funding applicants are required to submit the following documentation and may also submit additional supporting documents. Required documents include the standard Form 424 and lobbying form, and a 15-page limited project approach and proposed scope of work attachment. You can consider that as the proposal. And then also a supplemental form. You may see as you're going through the process that there might be some duplication in information between the 15-page proposal and the supplemental form. You can simply copy and paste that information into the supplemental form. But the supplemental form also asks additional questions. Concerning optional supporting documentations, those may include things such as letters of support or partner agreements and resumes. Now I'm going to hand it over to Janita of FTA's Grants Management and Guidance Office to talk about grants.gov and additional information on how to submit your application.
Thank you, Steve. So this portion of the webinar will provide an orientation on the resources available to you, the applicant on the FTA website, grants.gov website, and on the application process. So FTA funding opportunities are published on the FTA website, the Federal Register, and on the grants.gov website. We recommend applicants begin your search and application process on the FTA Notice of Funding Opportunities webpage. So using the Nofo page as your start will provide links to related information, websites, and other resources to assist you with the application process. To locate the Nofo page, go to the FTA homepage at fta.dot.gov. At the top of the page, select Funding and then select Applying. You will notice the Notice of Funding link on the left side of the page. The Notice of Funding page provides links to all the current or active FTA opportunities available to you. The Opportunity ID is a hyperlink to the FTA website Nofo page. And if you click on the grant program, the link brings you to the program page, which is sponsoring the discretionary funding. Next slide, please. Okay, so as mentioned, the FTA Nofo page contains a summary of the opportunity announcement, important dates such as the application deadline, a brief explanation of the eligibility requirements, and the links to grants.gov. Additionally, it has the FTA Supplemental Form, Federal Register Notice, and other relevant information about FTA programs that may assist you along the way with developing and submitting your proposal or application. So the supplemental form is a fillable PDF, which is the FTA product. It is used to capture the key elements of the proposal. The form contains fill-in blanks for information, which will be used by FTA to evaluate your project and the funding requested. The form must be attached to the application in grants.gov in order to receive consideration. And so we ask you to please do not use forms from prior years or attempt to create your own PDF in lieu of the supplemental form that we provide. And please use only the current forms provided on the FTA website or in grants.gov. And please do not attach images or scanned copies of the supplemental form. The PDF must be completed with typed text and attached to the application in grants.gov. And so you can navigate directly to the grants.gov site by selecting the blue hyperlink opportunity ID once you're on the Nofo page. Next slide, please. Okay, so once you select the blue hyperlink opportunity ID, you will be taken to the grants.gov site. The grants.gov site contains the grant opportunity page, which also includes 4 tabs. The 4 tabs are the synopsis, version history, related documents, and a package. This is also the page where you will begin to apply for the funding opportunity. The synopsis tab provides similar information, which we publish on the FTA website, but it also includes or shows any changes that have been posted. Additionally, it provides key dates and related regulatory references. So the version history tab will show a history of any changes made to the announcement. The related documents tab leads to a folder which contains documents related to the funding opportunity, and that includes items such as the Federal Register notice, the FTA supplemental form, and any other related documents. The package tab contains the references and links to download and apply for the opportunity. So just to note that anyone can download the application package, but only individuals who have been designated in grants.gov as the authorized organizational representative can submit the application. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the contents of the application package available in grants.gov, and that includes the mandatory SF 424, the lobbying form, and the attachment form used to attach supporting materials for the application. And I just want to mention that it does not include the FTA supplemental form in the application package. Next slide, please. So this slide is a screenshot of the FTA supplemental form. Each opportunity has its own form. The supplemental form must be downloaded separately from the FTA site or from within a related documents tab. And the form is to be attached to the application using the attachment form. The attachment form is a way for you to include documents that support your application. And just to reiterate again that the supplemental form is a fillable PDF and is used to capture the information FTA needs to evaluate the proposed project. And it must be filled in with text, otherwise FTA will reject your application. And again, please do not use forms for other years or other programs other than a program that's stated on the supplemental form. Next slide, please. So applicants who have not previously applied on grants.gov must visit grants.gov and select the Applicants tab. Applicants who have previously applied, we still encourage you to review the Applicants tab just to make sure you have the latest information about the application process. The Applicants tab walks you through the process of registering on grants.gov, as well as to ensure that you have the correct or compatible version of Adobe Acrobat. The site, the grants.gov site, also provides training on the use. And so I would just like to note that Adobe Compatibility is important, and the site checks the compatibility to make sure you have the correct version and software package in order to submit your application. The site provides the option to download the updated software if needed. Because in many instances, if you are encountering any technical issues, in some cases, it can be that you're using a different version of Adobe Acrobat than was specified. Next slide, please. So for new applicants to grants.gov or federal funds, the grants.gov site will assist you with the registration process in the System for Award Management, which is SAM, excuse me, and with obtaining a DUNS is now UEI number, but the site will assist you with that process if you are new to grants.gov or receiving federal funds. Next slide, please. Okay, so during the application process, registered organizations can create a workspace in which grant proposal teams can collaborate in developing the application proposal. The workspace just eliminates the need for emailing documents between team members, and assigned individuals can collaborate, share files, and perform various tasks to develop your application. And this is also the location in which the authorized organization representative can submit the completed application to grants.gov. So we encourage you to review the workspace information and identify the type of workspace and team members who will prepare the application. Review the roles and privileges, and just remember that only the authorized organization representative can submit the application. FTA is accepting applications submitted via grants.gov from organizations only and not individuals, and organizations must be registered in grants.gov. And all of the information, pertinent links are available on the Applicants tab located in grants.gov. Next slide, please. So last, if you encounter any technical issues while working on the application or when submitting your application, please address those concerns directly to grants.gov, and any program related questions or issues should be addressed to the FTA program manager. And with that, I will send it back over to Justin.
All right, thank you, Janita. So now we're going to dive into the question portion of today's webinar. I want to thank those that submitted questions just before the webinar. We're going to answer those in addition to those that have been submitting questions throughout the webinar. So first I want to talk about eligible applicants. One question that popped up is, do I have to be an existing FTA grantee to be eligible to apply for this Nofo?
You do not need to be an existing FTA grantee actually to compete for this Nofo. However, if you're eligible applicant, you are eligible to apply. But please note that if you are not an existing FTA grantee, you definitely will need to become one if selected for award, and will be responsible for compliance with any of our applicable federal requirements.
Thank you, Danielle. Next question. Must an organization competitively select partners before including them in an application?
I'll take this one. No, however, applicants are advised that any changes from the proposed partnership after selection will require FTA's written approval, must be consistent with the scope of the approved project, and may require competitive procurement unless an exception applies. If an application that involves a partnership identified in the application is selected for funding, the competitive selection process will be deemed to satisfy the requirement for a competitive procurement under 49 USC 5325A for the named entities.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to ask a question about submitting applications. As an eligible applicant, can I submit more than one application?
I'll take this one. Yes, for example, an applicant may apply for the ADAS demonstration and then submit a separate application for the automated transit bus maintenance and yard operations demonstration. Other examples could include the applicant teaming with different partners, or an organization or partner teaming with different applicants.
Thank you, Steve. Are applicants allowed to and/or encouraged to submit to both demonstration types?
And I can take that one. Applicants may submit to both demonstration types, either in one combined application or in a separate application.
Okay, thank you. talk about award totals. Do you have an idea of how many awards FTA intends to make under this program?
Yes, FTA anticipates competitively selecting up to 3 projects for each of the 2 types of demonstration. So that's a total of 6 projects.
It could be fewer.
It
than
can be
that.
fewer,
Yeah.
but up to.
Thank you. Okay, and I know we're getting some questions now submitted through the Q&A pod, so let's take a look at those. First one I'm going to talk about, looks like there's a question about actuation requirement. Could you elaborate about the actuation requirement of the ADAS system?
I'll take this. Yes, these are automation projects, so there needs to be some type of automated actuation. We are not looking for projects where the system provides a warning or alert to the bus operator and that the bus operator would have to take the actions such as steering or braking.
Thank you. Next question we're going to talk about is something that was submitted via question about revenue service. Apologies. Give me 1 second. Hold on a sec. Do I have to charge fares for revenue service included in an ADAS demonstration?
And I can take that one. FTA's National Transit Database, also known as NTD, defines revenue service as the time when a vehicle is available to the general public and there's an expectation of carrying passengers. Vehicles operated in fare-free service are considered in revenue service. And if you want to get more information on this, you should take a look at the NTD glossary.
Thank you. Talk about eligible applicants. There's a question about how do you define public transit agencies? Would a nonprofit organization that provides public transit service, for example, a Section 5310 agency, be eligible as an applicant and or partner subrecipient?
Good question. So if you're a provider of public transportation, you are an eligible applicant. According to the federal transit law, which is 49 USC Section 5302(14), the term public transportation means regular continuing shared ride service transportation services that are open to the general public or open to a segment of the general public defined by age, disability, or low income, and does not include passenger rail transportation provided by the entity described in Chapter 243. Example is Amtrak, intercity bus service, charter bus service, school bus service, sightseeing service, courtesy shuttle service for patrons of one or more specific establishment, or intra-terminal or intra-facility shuttle service. Now, if you want to follow up with us offline regarding this, as it relates to your agency's eligibility, please do so.
Thank you, Danielle. Steve, you were talking a little bit about the independent evaluation. So could you answer, should applications include costs related to the independent evaluation, or are those costs covered by FTA outside the award?
You should include that in your project cost. So you will need to consider things such as costs associated with collecting data and meeting with the independent evaluator, time spent on working with the independent evaluator to develop an evaluation plan, if time for reviewing the evaluation report, those type of activities.
Thank you. I think we answered this question. I'll just maybe broadcast this again. Someone submitted, if the lead applicant has selected specific partners clearly documented in the application, are competitive procurement requirements considered met if the project is selected for funding?
Yeah, we already answered that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an ADAS question. I think there's a question about, will ADAS be connected to the transit detection system that activates cross-warning devices for railroad preemption with nearby intersections? I think this is diving a little bit into an actual application itself. So for that person who submitted the question, if you could follow up on transit automation at dot.gov, we'll be able to talk more.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. If you feel you need to have connectivity, if this is what it means, connectivity in your automated system, then yes, that you may include that.
I have a question about specific devices. Would backup cameras or driver alerts when backing up parking qualify? And I guess maybe for a little more context, you are talking about, I think, the ADAS application itself, or are you providing a little more context for the Yardops?
I'll take this one. It's fine to include those. You're going to need to have sensors, for example, but it needs to be more than a system that just provides that visual information or alerts to the bus operator. There needs to be some type of automated actuation where when the bus was backing up, if it was going to collide with something, it would have that automatic emergency braking capability.
Okay, Steve, actually, I'm gonna come back to you one more time. Someone just asked, could you repeat the clarification about the actuation requirement of the ADAS system?
Yes. So again, we're looking for projects that go beyond providing alerts to the bus operator, where the operator would either have to, step on the brake or steer away from an object, and those type of things. So there needs to be automated actuation that's included in the system. Hopefully, that's the best way I can describe it.
Okay, let me
So that'd be actuation of braking, steering, and acceleration or propulsion.
thank you, Steve. I'll answer this question quickly. When will this webinar be available? We hope to have the recording of the webinar and accompanied by FAQs, particularly those that were submitted during the webinar and right before. Hopefully in the upcoming days, I won't say a specific timetable, but everyone will get a notification as soon as the recording of the webinar and accompanying FAQs are available on the FTA public website. There's a question regarding FMVSS. What if you are testing aspects of the vehicle that go above and beyond and do not require specific attributes, such as a steering wheel? Can you provide any context on that?
Certainly. I think if you go above and beyond, then you meet those safety requirements. Oops. I missed, it came off of my screen. If you're going to remove a steering wheel, then you're not in compliance, for example, with FMVSS. That would be make inoperable prohibition of NHTSAs. But if the vehicles do not, we anticipate probably most of these will comply with FMVSS because they'll be like retrofits. So the vehicles would be meeting FMVSS, for example. But if the vehicles you think do not comply, the application should either show that the vehicle and their proposed operations are within the scope of an exemption or waiver that has already been granted by NHTSA and FMCSA or both agencies, or directly address in the application where the project will require exemptions or waiver from FMVSS, FMCSR, or any other regulations. And if the project will require exemptions or waivers, present a plan for obtaining them. Present the plan in the application.
Thank you, Steve. I want to talk specifics about the Nofo. Someone mentions or calls out the term limited proof of concept. Can you talk about what is included in a limited proof of concept, specifically for the phase 1 automation for maintenance and yard operations demonstration?
Sure. So with the limited proof of concept, it should demonstrate that the concepts of operation are feasible. The conducting phase 1 demonstration is at an active bus yard. It's preferred to be at an active bus yard, but off-site facility and test tracks will be considered. With the phase 1, it will result in lessons learned and potential next steps for possible phase 2 if the proof of concept proves to be successful.
Mm-hmm. It's a question regarding intelligence platforms. Are such platforms, for example, Smart Drive, eligible for this opportunity?
We'll have to get back to the
Yeah.
person on this one.
I'll work on it.
There's another question regarding is there a possibility that a project will not be fulfilled for the full estimated grant dollars and only given a portion of the grant amount requested?
Yes, I think this means about scaling. So there could be a scenario where FTA would select more proposals than we have budgeted, and then we would request recipients to scale back their proposal. So there is that scenario, but in order for the recipient to receive the award, it would have to be shown that you can still meet the objectives of the project. I think that's what's being asked.
Whether it's scalable or not.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not sure this has too much context. Sorry for this question, but words highlighted are being autonomous electric bus. Is this eligible? For example, a level 4 driver still in seat. Is this something that could be potentially funded? I assume for the ADAS opportunity?
So for ADAS, that is level, well, technically level 0 if it is momentary automation, but levels 1 and 2. So that does not include this level 4. However, for the automation in bus yards, yes, that could be level 4. And with respect to the driver in the seat, I mean, that's fine. That's typically called a safety driver. So for these prototype type of projects, it might be, it's prudent to have the operator in the seat.
Thank you, Steve. We're going to talk about a regulatory question. Do vehicles and services need to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I think for that one, all sort of demonstration activities funded through Section 5312, which are open to the public, are subject to the US DOT accessibility regulations. Right. And more information is available on FTA's ADA public webpage. One additional question here in the Q&A. Are we able to purchase security cameras with this funding? This is relating to buses and facilities. And this one, I think we'll get back to you as well. If there's a specific link for the cameras in relation, for example, for Yardops, in relation to some demonstration activity, we can confer with our Office of Grants Management. But there would definitely have to be a relation, and we can confirm this.
Yeah. If there's some relation between the security cameras and the automation, I'm assuming this is for bus yards, this type of question. Then you can propose that. Yeah.
So that's something we would follow up.
Okay. Thank you for the 2 questions and one from this attendee. First question, how are we defining near market ready? And then the second question, open-ended, which is preferred, fixed route or flexible route?
So with the term near market ready, what we're not looking for is a completely new development of technology. So it would be, all of these are pretty much prototypes. So it's working with what's out there commercially with respect to prototypes or components of that. But it's not a complete creation or development of a new capability.
Thank you. Question about another regulatory question. I think we'll probably reiterate this in terms of the broad general regulatory requirements, but are the buses for higher level automation required to comply with Buy America or Buy American? And I think the answer here is there are overarching federal regulatory requirements for this Nofo. So as the panelists noted earlier, projects need to comply with the FMVSS standards by our company, our sister organization NHTSA, and then also overarching Buy America requirements, ADA requirements, in addition to any sort of Title VI requirements. So any of the sort of the existing regulatory framework, these projects need to comply with them at time of the application submittal. There's a question regarding automation with EV charging, such as wireless charging. I'm not sure there's additional context there. But I think this attendee might be asking if this sort of activity is eligible. If you can provide a bit more context, that would be helpful. Okay, thank you. And then the question was if this is eligible, and this is something that, well, again, we'll probably work with our colleagues here at FTA just to confirm this eligibility requirement. Steve, I'm gonna probably put you on the spot maybe one more time. There's additional questions regarding the actuation examples that you provided of braking, steering, propulsion. Is there anything else, or is this Nofo being specifically limited to those examples?
Those are examples of actuation actions. So this gets back to the transit bus ADAS use cases that are in the STAR plan, such as smooth acceleration and deceleration, automatic emergency braking and pedestrian collision avoidance, curb avoidance, precision docking, narrow lane, and shoulder operations and platooning. So for example, when I say, for example, curb avoidance or pedestrian collision avoidance and automatic emergency braking, it would not be a situation where an alert, we're not looking for projects that alert the bus driver of these impending collisions, and that the bus driver would have to step on the step on the brake, or to take the steering wheel and steer away from the potential obstacle. It would need to be actuated automatically. So that's my best definition that I can give.
Thank you, Steve. Question regarding the yard operations. Does the automated transit bus maintenance and Yardops technology system also need to have automated actuation, or is the implementation of a standard yard management system an eligible project?
So again, these are automation projects. So that means that the bus movement through the bus yard would need to be automated. It wouldn't be necessarily the bus operator who would be steering it through there. I mean, it could be a level 1 or level 2, but as identified in the STAR plan, that it's identified as a level 4 demonstration, level 4 prototype. Do you have anything to add, Danielle?
Well, I was, depending on what it is, it could be both without having the details.
Right. Depends what the
Yeah,
details
it
are.
depends on what it is, so it could be both.
There's a question regarding bus simulation or driver training through bus simulation. Could this be an eligible project? And I think, Danielle, you hinted at this with the limited proof of concept. You know, if I believe, again, this is an example, we can follow up more offline, but you hinted about the yard ops, for example, being at offsite facilities or test tracks. That could be considered. And I think this kind of hits home into the bus simulation or driver training. So you can, again, considering this as an example, we'll definitely follow up, but that could be something as an eligible activity for a project.
Right.
Especially,
that-
yeah, for the training
I
of
was
the,
gonna say, yeah, and that's specifically for phase 1 of the bus yard operation demonstration.
it could be eligible for either of the demonstrations as a
Right.
part of the training with bus
Correct.
operators, for example.
There's a question, I think again, maybe we did not answer this. Any preference on the type of service, fixed route or flexible route? And
No preference. Could be either one.
And of course, that doesn't apply to the maintenance yard. 'Cause
Right.
You're in a controlled environment.
there's a question regarding retrofits. If there's a retrofit solution being submitted, do the companies applying need to source the buses, or how will the vehicles be provided?
So the total amount is 5 million available, and we anticipate providing more than one award I'm using this as the ADAS example. So you could submit in your application the purchase of a bus and to integrate the technology when you are manufacturing the bus. But you have to keep that in mind. That would be a pretty expensive project. Or you could take existing buses in your fleet and then retrofit them with the ADAS technology.
This question, are surveys to capture the acceptance and perception of passengers and bicyclists to make adjustments, I assume, to the automation system, considered an eligible expense on the project? And I know this is quite specific.
Yes, so that's going to be a part of an evaluation, I would anticipate. There is going to be an independent evaluator that will have its separate budget. So the administration of those surveys would typically be incurred by the independent evaluator. However, they can't do this by themselves. They're going to have to work with the recipients, like a transit agency, for example, and get access to the drivers and things like that. So if you think there's any costs that will be incurred by the applicant, please include them in your application. But I just want to stress that the independent evaluator will have its own budget to conduct that independent evaluation. So that is once they receive, so that's to develop an evaluation plan, draft and then finalize it, to receive data from the recipient team. There will be a cost of analyzing those data and then coming up with calculations and conclusions and then documenting that in the evaluation report. That will be their budget.
Thank you. Question about yard operations. Is the expectation for firms or organization eligible applicants to apply only for phase 1 of yard operations, or do eligible applicants need to apply for both phase 1 and phase 2?
So phase 2, of course, is pending funding. So the expectation is you're applying for phase 1 of the 1.5. Of course, if we do receive funding, we welcome you to also apply for phase 2. But right now, we're just focusing on the phase 1. Hope that answers the question.
Okay, just got a few more questions popping in. Just want to make sure we didn't overlook anything. We'll take this one regarding local match. For the local match, is it safe to assume that in kind is allowable? And for example, we have some activities such as mechanics operators have curriculum development costs. They have instructor costs, labor costs associated with the mechanics and operators. So to provide a specific example, would the wages paid to personnel, mechanics and operators, like using Section 5307 funds, be eligible to be used as a local match to this grant?
No, the local match has to come from the applicant. It cannot be other federal funding. But in kind and cash are eligible funding sources.
And I think there's another question regarding yard operations. I just to clarify this again, and I'll answer this. Can we apply for both phase 1 and phase 2 for yard automation? Right now, FTA is only providing 1.5 million for an initial phase of yard operations. Right now,
Phase 1.
Phase 1.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a phase 2 yet, but if there is additional funding, everyone will be notified. One question regarding the max award ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
For example, what is the max award ceiling for one application for ADAS?
So there's 5 million available for ADAS, so that would be the ceiling. However, you may want to, consider if you're going to ask for the full pot of money. So that's something to think about.
Okay, we're going to definitely answer a few more questions. For those again, who have questions that they would like to have asked or at least considered as we develop the FAQ following this webinar, please submit them via the Q&A function on the toolbar on the bottom of your screen. There's a question regarding the I guess that when you consider both the ADAS and the Yardops, is this a beta test or a field trial opportunity?
Good question. So as I think I mentioned, there are really no commercially available automated vehicle systems out there. They're all kind of prototypes. So when you say beta, that's could be like a prototype. So beta testing would be kind of your pre-demonstration testing, I would believe. So for the ADAS demonstration, we do require that the project end in a 12-month revenue service field demonstration. So it would need to be operating with passengers on board, for example, but with a real bus operator behind the wheel, operating in revenue service.
Steve. Question regarding again, I think this relates to a question that was just answered regarding maximum award ceiling. For the yard operations for the 1.5 million that's available, is that going to be for a single award or potentially be split?
So once again, for the maintenance yard operation, there's 1.5 available for funding, which is the ceiling. So that's not, that's the ceiling, that's the max. So it's not intended to say 1, 2, I think in the Nofo, actually the Nofo, it says up to 3. And so that's
Right,
That's
and there's
where we are.
potentially a phase 2 with
Right.
additional funding, potentially.
potentially, you have to say potential.
Okay, and then I think we just have a few more questions that we're going to answer here. I think there's one regarding on we can elaborate on what levels are eligible for that attendee that submitted that question. If you could maybe elaborate a bit
Yeah.
more.
So it says EV star level. I'm not quite sure what that is. There's an EV star vehicle, but I can just generally talk about automation levels for for ADAS, that's partial automation, that's not full automation. So it could be levels 1 or 2. The exception there would be automatic emergency braking, which by definition of the SAE standard 3016, that is momentary actuation or momentary automation. So technically that's level 0. And similarly for the curb avoidance. So in the bus yard, again, as defined in the STAR plan, we're envisioning level 4.
Thank you, Steve. And just for confirmation, again, I think we're getting a few more questions regarding the yard operations. To be clear, the Nofo has 1.5 million available for phase 1 of the yard operation. There is not yet a phase 2. So for those eligible applicants who are interested in the 1.5 million, it will be for an initial phase of yard operations, and a phase 2 is subject to funding availability in the future.
And just to be clear that it's a limited proof of concept that's going to demonstrate a concept of operation. So that's what we're looking at for phase 1.
One question regarding independent evaluators. And I think I just want to be clear as well, the recipient, if selected for an award under this program, you'll be required to work with an FTA selected independent evaluator.
Yeah, let me elaborate on that if I may. So the FTA is going to select the independent evaluator. So we are not suggesting that applicants include an evaluation team as a part of their project team. In fact, it is not an eligible cost.
Thank you. Take this one additional question. If an eligible applicant were to apply, would 100% of the revenue vehicles posted to the facility need to be equipped with the technology so that the bus would move through its movement and parking functions under automated control with the operator behind the wheel as a safety operator? And maybe for this attendee that asked the question, I think, are you suggesting that there's an operator behind the wheel at all times for the demonstration?
If I may, so the first part of it, if we were to apply, would 100% of the revenue vehicles posted to the facility need to be equipped with the technology? That could be quite expensive. So this is a demonstration, so you may want to equip, quite a subset of that amount as a proof of concept. And then with respect to the movement through the parking functions, it doesn't have to be, automation of all of the functions that are performed in a bus yard. Danielle talked about some of those functions. We do not have a demonstration that we're currently engaged in, nor do we see in the foreseeable future where you would have an automated vehicle without a safety driver behind the wheel. So we highly recommend that you have a safety operator behind the wheel, even if it's at a prototype level 4, which technically is not a level 4. It's probably more like a level 3.
Yep. I think we're getting close to all the questions being answered. So again, I want to thank you for those who are still on the call, listening in and providing questions. And as noted, we'll repeat that these subset of these questions, in addition to the recording of the webinar, will be posted to the FTA public website. There's one additional question that popped in regarding braking and simulation projects. Would this be eligible? For example, training on behaviors regarding drivers, understanding their some of the components and with multiple OEM products, certain automation and braking systems. So would a braking and simulation project be eligible under this funding opportunity?
It doesn't seem like it's a fit within the scope based on the description.
Thank you, Steve. One additional question coming into the chat is, what is the expected start date of the project?
Well, we do have a timeline. I don't really want to commit to anything, but we would think.
The Nofo closes November 21st. And from there, we will have to coordinate and work with our leadership. But we'll post and have all the information provided on our website.
Okay, so I think that's it for all the questions. Again, please submit your questions to transitautomation@dot.gov. We will provide a recording of this webinar, some questions to help you pivot through the application process, and we're always available to answer any questions. And I think we have some attendees raising their hands, so we will stay on. And we actually had another question submitted, so let me first ask the question to the panelists. Given that active bus yards are preferred for phase 1 proof of concept testing, how can an application be developed to make offsite facilities and test tracks
More competitive.
more competitive?
So
Do you want me to grab this one?
started.
So an eligible expense is to do kind of the pre-demonstration testing. So that is envisioned to be like at a test track. I don't know if that answers the question or not. Do you have anything to add to that?
So, yeah, I was just
But I
saying,
don't know what it
it's
means about more
preferred-
competitive.
yeah, more competitive. It's preferred to be, as we said, in a, active bus yard. However, if it's at a test track, as far as it being competitive, I think it's open. It doesn't, if you don't have it, that's why we wanted to make sure that it's not limited just to, for phase one, the proof of concept, that it had to be, in an active bus yard. Meaning it wouldn't make it more or less competitive if it's not.
And I put the email into the chat pod, so everyone should have received that. But I think we are now going to conclude this afternoon's webinar. And I just want to make sure there are any final words from any of the panelists.
Steve Mortensen here. I don't have anything, but thank you very much for your interest in this notice of funding opportunity. Great questions. Danielle?
I just want to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to some great proposals, and I
Yeah.
thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.